This episode of the Unstarving Musician is sponsored by Liner Notes. Want to learn from the hundreds of musicians and industry pros I've spoken with for the Unstarving Musician? Sign up for Liner Notes, my curated email newsletter where I share the best insights and knowledge gems from these conversations, some of which have been featured here on the podcast. From marketing to songwriting to touring and sync licensing, you'll get actionable tips delivered straight to your inbox every 2 weeks. Liner Notes Insider, the deep dive edition, will feature exclusive deep dives, detailed case studies, and premium content that goes beyond the podcast interviews. Sign up at unstarvingmusician.com/liner notes. It's free to get started, and you can unsubscribe at any time. Welcome to another episode of the Unstarving Musician. This is episode 318. How are you? Where are you? And what are you wearing? These things are important to me. In this episode, I will discuss music business essentials. It's kind of a musician's guide to copyright, contracts, and cash flow. It's based on a recent issue of Liner Notes, which you can subscribe to at, you guessed it, unstarvingmusician.com. And then in keeping with the recent trend where I share news, Marianne Faithfull, London's swinging 60s voice who survived a lot, died at 78. Her singing career began as a teenager and lasted until her 70s. Her first hit was As Tears Go By, which was written by Mick Jagger and Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones. It was the first song they ever wrote. They gave it to her in 1964. Our sympathies go out to Marianne Faithfull's friends and family. And then, this is not new news, but something I've been yammering on about. Singer Paul Rodgers of the legendary 70s British rock group Bad Company and others has revealed plans to release a memoir, and he's reached out to fans for their help. And actually, I don't know if that's still going on. I'm going to check it out because I've seen him a lot of times. And I was thinking of him recently and discovered here where I live in Mexico that young people don't really know who he was. Bad Company was not the only thing he did. He worked with Queen, Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin, many others. He's recorded a lot of solo albums, had a career that began before Bad Company, and he really is, an icon of British rock singers. I find that many young people here in Querétaro don't know who he is, and well, I'm trying to enlighten them with some of his best tunes. I've actually created a playlist of my own essential listening recommendations, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes for funsies. You might want to check it out. All right, diving into today's episode. I'm going to start with understanding contracts. When I started the Unstarving Musician journey, I focused almost entirely on the music aspect, musicians, gigs. Although I knew that the business side was important, I didn't find it particularly exciting and often found it overwhelming. And most of my business lessons come from legal and business matters having to do with investing rather than music. But I've still gained a lot of valuable insight about the music industry through years of research, participating in a music marketing program, and conversations with hundreds of musicians for the podcast. And what I've learned is that understanding the business and legal aspects is it's crucial for any musician looking to build a sustainable career while staying true to their artistic vision. I learned the lessons of understanding contracts the hard way and more than once. Where music is concerned, I'm pretty fortunate. Honestly, the worst thing that's ever happened to me in all my years of performing is venues attempting to change minor terms and details without bothering to tell me. And this fortunately hasn't happened a lot. Because I know things can get much worse, I want to kind of demystify contracts for all of you. So everything I've learned comes from years of performing, recording, hundreds of conversations with industry professionals, and a lot of research. And I'd love to tell you that I never start a project or performance without a written agreement, even with friends or familiar venues, but it's not the truth. But hey, it is a new year, and I've had recent reminders why it's the best practice. And so I encourage you to always use a written agreement, even for smaller gigs. And you can use simple performance contracts that outline things like payment terms and amounts, including deposit requirements if you have them, performance duration and set times, technical requirements and who provides what equipment, hospitality arrangements, cancellation policies and contingency plans, things like that. But for more complex situations like recording contracts or licensing deals, I recommend getting a professional legal review. And yeah, it'll cost money up front, but it's far cheaper than dealing with problems later, right? We can go down a deep rabbit hole on this topic of performance contracts and several of the others that we're going to touch on, but I think the important point is to use them and learn about the essential components of the performance contract. All right, let's talk about copyright and royalties. Your songs have two separate copyright components: the composition, which are lyrics and melody, and the sound recording, the actual recorded version. Thanks to my older brother's experience in the music business, I learned early on about the importance of protecting your work, and he'd seen firsthand what poor contractual agreements could do. So when I started recording my original tracks, I made it a priority to understand copyright protection thoroughly. And the process became more interesting when I collaborated with a co-writer on one of my singles. It introduced some, additional considerations. It's not really highly complex, but there's some additional things to think about. Through researching copyright law and its protections and importance, I've gained some valuable insights. So again, you've got those two separate parts of the copyright. And then to maximize your royalty earnings, you need to do a few things. So of course, register your works with the Copyright Office. Join a performance rights organization, commonly known as a PRO, like ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC. Then register with Sound Exchange for digital performance royalties. And ensure your music is properly registered with your distributor. And in some cases, they help take care of this other stuff, or they provide services to help you with some of these other items I've mentioned for royalty earnings. With regards to copyright and the process, if you want to do it directly with the Copyright Office, just go to copyright.gov, look for the Performing Arts section, and they've got a great video tutorial and a lot of other information there. I'll have a link in the show notes directly to the Performing Arts section if you want to save yourself a little time and grab that link from the show notes. Now then, performance rights organizations, or PROs, they serve three main functions. And some of this stuff, much of it has been covered partly in other episodes, partly in other issues of liner notes, but we're trying to do something very specific here and dive a little bit deeper. So one of the things that PROs do is they collect royalties when music is publicly performed, like on radio, streaming, venues, etc. Secondly, they monitor and track music usage across various platforms and venues. And then 3, they distribute collected royalties to copyright holders, songwriters, publishers, and composers. And the main PROs in the U.S., as I mentioned, are ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC. And then in Canada, it's going to be SOCAN. And then there are different bodies in other regions that you'd want to familiarize yourself with. You just need to sign up with one in your region. Now, I believe there are some arguments for signing up for international organizations depending on what you're doing with your music and maybe how much activity you have going on. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that I have actually written about that before, and it just struck me that it's something I didn't think about for this conversation, but something to look into. They specifically handle performance royalties for the music composition, not sound recordings, which Sound Exchange, again, covers for digital platforms. Membership in a PRO is really important for musicians who want to receive compensation when their work is performed publicly, and each organization maintains its own database and relationships with licensees who use the music. So Sound Exchange, they're going to collect, as I said, and distribute digital performance royalties for sound recordings, not composition. So these will be performance royalties from things like satellite radio, like Sirius XM, internet radio, like Pandora, digital streaming services, cable music channels, and some others. Key points to remember here with Sound Exchange are that registration is required for collecting digital performance royalties. It's different from PROs, which handle composition rights. Membership is free. They are the only organization authorized to collect these specific royalties in the U.S., and non-membership means unclaimed royalties, so potentially lost money. Let's talk about business structure, financial management, and taxes. My favorite topic. When I started the Unstarving Musician, I began to learn how different musicians and content creators thought about the structure of their business. And most of us start out as sole proprietors, transitioning perhaps to an LLC, which can be a game changer. But there's a matter of timing to consider. So I wouldn't encourage all musicians and content creators to form an LLC. But if you're doing a significant amount of business, meaning you're making your living from multiple partnerships, fans, supporters, and or customers, it may be time to consider forming an LLC, and this is applicable to the U.S. An LLC might make sense for you because it can help you in protecting your personal assets, provides some professional credibility, simplifies tax handling to a degree, and it's easier to do actual business banking. But at a minimum, I recommend that you maintain separate business accounts and meticulously track all music-related income and expenses. And as I like to say, your future self will thank you during tax season. And with regards to being meticulous about tracking things, separating your personal and business finances has some great benefits, and it just simply makes keeping track of things much better. And should you ever be audited, it makes auditing a lot easier, makes things look cleaner, and like you are on top of your stuff. Okay, basic accounting practices for musicians. So as I said, separate your business and personal accounts, and then track all of your income sources, so gigs, merch, streaming, etc., and document expenses with receipts. Always keep a receipt of some sort, digital or otherwise. This is a big one, but update your records, your tracking, your organizing, like weekly or every other week. And you can do this with a simple spreadsheet, or you can use one of many accounting apps that are out there. There's some great mobile apps, and a lot of the big computer accounting applications have mobile versions you can use. And monitor your cash flow and profit margins. So stay on top of that. And track venue-specific earnings, because it'll help you zero in on the ones that are profitable and the ones that are just kind of like a total loss, because they not only lack profit, maybe they lack a little fun. So why would you play there? All right, let's talk about tax considerations and planning. Set aside a percentage for quarterly estimated taxes. I generally say 25%, at a minimum 20%, and submit an estimated tax payment quarterly. Your accountant and your future self will thank you for that. Track all your deductible expenses like equipment, travel, promotion, and maintain a vehicle mileage log for gigs. You get to deduct mileage expense, which is updated annually, the amount that you can deduct from your taxes. So keep track of that. There's some great apps for that, or you can just use a notebook. Keep a system that you'll use. Keep track of your home studio and office space use. So if you have a home studio that doubles as an office, or you have both of those things that you're using for your music business, make sure you can explain what those are either on the tax return to a tax preparation specialist, or even better, a certified public accountant. Keep records of all of your 1099s and revenue sources. Consider tax implications of your business structure, so LLC versus sole proprietor. If you don't know much about those, lots of resources online, but talk to an accounting or tax professional about the benefits, pros and cons, and whether it makes sense for you. And then build a relationship with a music savvy accountant, or at least a decent accountant. Doesn't even have to be music savvy. They can figure that stuff out. If they're music savvy, even better. And plan for sales tax on merchandise. So all that profit you make is not necessarily all yours, depending on how you're selling it. So plan for sales tax, because you're going to owe part of that yourself. And so you need to charge for it in some instances. Okay, here are some practical action steps you can take toward all of these things that you're hopefully not being overwhelmed by. Set up some basic performance agreements, or grab some templates, and create a venue database system. Create some income and expense tracking methods, and build professional relationships with professional service providers. Register your work, your original works, with the Copyright Office. It's technically protected the moment you create it, but the registration provides documentation you'll need if someone infringes on your rights. I've done this with my own music, as I said, including with collaborators, and the peace of mind is worth every penny. Join a PRO and set up your Sound Exchange account. If you can, set up separate business banking and accounting systems, and set aside regular time for business education and the whole administration, the whole administrative work part of it. And remember that building business acumen, if it doesn't come naturally, takes time. So start with the basics and gradually expand your knowledge. So the goal isn't to become a legal or business expert. It's to understand enough to protect yourself and make informed decisions about your music career. Use written agreements for your gigs, like I said. In many cases, a simple email outlining payments, set times, technical requirements, etc. can save you from those awkward, but I thought we agreed to conversations. And then start tracking your music-related income and expenses now, not later. And trust me on this one. Set up a basic spreadsheet or use an app. Pick a system you'll use. These aren't the only important steps to take, but they'll give you a strong foundation you can use to build your music business. Get these basics right, and you'll be better prepared for whatever opportunities come your way. In the edition of liner notes that I mentioned at the top of the show, I provided some resources for self-education, which I'm going to share with you here, but you've got a list of them with links in liner notes, and you can get access to archives easy enough. Like I said, I've interviewed countless successful artists and industry professionals, so I've compiled a list of trusted resources that are proven invaluable. And here are some of the ones that I've used and or just recommend to my community. So a website called Musicians and Company. They offer fantastic free guides to music business topics, and they are musicianandcompany.com. Berklee has some great online free courses through Coursera. And then Creators Legal has a complete guide to music contracts, a great article, link in the show notes for that. And then there are free music contract templates available through LegalZoom. And then you could check out Music Marketing Method by Lynz Crichton. It's a program that I've been involved in. You can check that out at unstarvingmusician.com/music marketing. Podcasts like this one are obviously going to be helpful to you. The New Music Business podcast with Ari Herstand, and Break the Business podcast. And I'm remiss because I didn't put the host name there, and it just kind of eludes me. He's actually been on this podcast. And then there are some liner notes archives that I will have links to in the show notes for you that cover some of this in a bit of depth. And then some professional services and help resources you should consider. So contract review for significant deals that you have in the fire. Obviously, professionals for tax preparation and planning. Professional for copyright disputes, should they come your way. Any business structure changes you need to make, you probably want someone to help you with that. And then insurance needs. Music Pro Insurance is a known provider for that. And then mental health and wellness. Backline.care actually provides some great resources, and none of this really helps us much if we're a wreck from mental or physical unwellness. So it's worth budgeting for some professional services. Consider it an investment in your career rather than an expense. Now then, it's worth mentioning that subscribers to Liner Notes Insider, the deep dive edition, had some bonus resources, including some free downloadable templates for a venue contact database template, income expense template, performance agreements. These are all fairly simple, straightforward things. However, I think they're worth it with all the other things in the sort of deep dive that you get with Liner Notes Insider. There will be a resource library that includes many other templates that you'll get access to. So I hope you'll check that out at unstarvingmusician.com/liner notes. And that's it. I hope you found this useful, insightful. Lastly, I want to mention that as an independent podcaster, your support means the world to me. And you could even say that I depend on it. So with that in mind, here's some things you can do to help support the podcast. You can follow, review, or share. So if you enjoyed the episode, follow us on your favorite podcast app, leave a review on your favorite podcast app, or shoot us a review by email at robonzo@unstarvingmusician.com that I can put on the website. Or just share this episode with a friend. This has a big impact on our audience growth. You can also visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn about many other ways of supporting the podcast, including a quick and easy online tip jar. Click tip done. Easy and appreciated. You'll find many different ways of showing your support there, though, including through our affiliate partners like Bandzoogle, ConvertKit, DreamHost, and more. And then all the things I've talked about, at least most of them, will be in the show notes with links. And if you have feedback about this episode or anything else related to the Unstarving Musician, you can leave it at unstarvingmusician.com/feedback. Thank you so much for listening. Peace, gratitude, and a whole lot of love.